He was a divine star of all the epic stories, and a champion of the people when no one wanted to rock the boat.
These are the times that try men's souls, the sunshine patriot and the summer soldier.
But was Charlton Heston as much a hero to his family as he was to the country? Welcome, I am your host, Nostalgic Nick, with testimony from Heston's very own children that paint a pleasantly surprising but heartbreaking tale. If you enjoyed this video today, please give it a thumbs up to show your support, and subscribe to our channel so you catch all our latest deep dives.
No. You blaspheme!
Ah, let go of me, Moses. I was kidding. Fooling around.
But now, without further ado, let's part the seas and get moving. How did Charlton Heston pick his name?
Kind of a lonely hick kid from the woods who didn't know how to dance, didn't know how to drive, didn't have any money, didn't know how to date girls.
Struggle would inspire a lot of Heston's biggest life decisions. The struggles he faced and the ones he saw others fight through. His began when he was just a child. He had a rustic upbringing that started simple and then was shattered when his parents split up when he was just 10. Our hero today was born John Charles Carter, but the chaos of the divorce would see him take up the name one piece at a time. Charlton came from his maternal grandmother's maiden name. Then his mother remarried a man named Chester Heston, and she really wanted her kids to have this guy's name too. Thus, Charlton Heston was reborn in time for his first film in 1941. Yes, the first of many, although Heston nearly turned down some of the biggest and most memorable films you know. Was Charlton Heston a veteran? Heston quickly established himself as a big patriot, and he did everything in his part to help his country, and then some. Even when he was a newlywed, he enlisted in the Air Force. For 2 years, he served as a radio operator and aerial gunner, and even reached the rank of staff sergeant. And it was Heston that the Army turned to for a very unique project. In the early 80s, a group called Lab Films, which made important military report videos, faced a dilemma. The group leader, Charles Barnett, didn't like the quality of the very classified films they were making. A colleague joked they should get Heston to narrate, and wait a second, that is a great idea. What's more, Barnett and Heston were actually already friends. Barnett was surprised when Heston agreed to this obscure job, but it was even more shocking when Heston laid out one huge condition. He wished to not get paid for them at all. One last hurdle. To do this, Heston had to narrate some very sensitive national security secrets.
When that shoulder is thousands of miles away, the only answer is advanced technology, and that's where Los Alamos comes in.
Well, no big deal. This country boy turned veteran turned movie icon was given what's called Q clearance, which just so happens to be our nation's highest security clearance level. He had this designation for 6 entire years to narrate Armed Forces and Department of Energy videos, particularly about nuclear weapons. How long was Charlton Heston married to his wife? One of Heston's biggest memories of childhood was feeling out of his depth when talking to women. He was still in school, albeit in his time in college, when he first set his eyes on the beautiful Lydia Clark. For Heston, it was love at first sight, and he said in his biography, quote, "I obviously found the right girl the first time out, and I had the brains to recognize that." He felt so sure about this, he was ready for marriage from the get-go. Lydia now wasn't so convinced. Quite the opposite, actually. The words arrogant and conceited and supremely self-confident were her way of describing Heston. Yeah, maybe leave those words out of the wedding vows. Thankfully for our lover boy, Lydia was willing to hear him out, and they got to bond by doing theater together. This helped Lydia see the real depth and wisdom to his character. That helped seal the deal, and she realized she was, in her words, insanely in love with him. The young lovebirds would get married in 1944. When the US entered World War II, Charlton answered the call, and their love story endured across oceans in the most romantic ways. Of course, handwritten letters. Not only did this keep their relationship fierce as ever, it chronicled their history together. So years later, Their daughter Holly could read them and tell the world, quote, "The two of them were great letter writers. Even when Heston's service was over, he always wanted to be with Lydia. When the glamorous life of a star sent him to Egypt to film the 10 Commandments, Heston kept up a diary full of notes from each day, sketches, and much more. As Holly explained, this was, quote, to make Lydia feel included. And then, like the perfect bit of symbolism, Lydia was finally able to visit Egypt with Heston, and they climbed to the top of a pyramid together, just like their marriage was on top of the world. It's that commitment that saw them together for a whopping 64 years of bliss. But were they too busy on love and work to have time for proper parenting? Did Charlton Heston have any children? Heston spent 60 years in Hollywood, amassing some of the most iconic roles to date, from the lead in Ben-Hur to Moses and God 2 in the 10 Commandments, Julius Caesar, Planet of the Apes, Three Musketeers, Greatest Story Ever Told. I mean, wow. Acting was this once awkward kid's escape after his world got turned upside down, and it would also lead him to become a national star. So, was there time for the simple things in between all this work? Well, Charlton Heston made sure there was. In 1955, Heston and Lydia welcomed a son named Fraser, followed by Holly 6 years later. The two never wanted for affection, even during Dad's busiest work days, and both kids got to see a comedic side of him that few others glimpsed with all those grand, serious roles.
Really decent, kind-hearted people, and they knew that all the glitz and glamour of Hollywood was just exactly that.
He loved practical jokes. He loved clipping cartoons from the funny papers, as he called them. Fraser said Charlton loved acting, but he loved to spend time with his family and was overall a great family man. Fraser's little sis Holly backs this glowing review, saying, quote, "They were amazing parents. They were proud of producing 2 kids who weren't sent off to rehab. And sure enough, both of them are doing very well for themselves. Fraser is a director, screenwriter, film producer, and an actor. His very first role was when he was a tiny baby. Specifically, he was baby Moses in 10 Commandments. As for Holly, she's a fine arts expert who really knows her stuff. After all, she grew up with it." Did Charlton Heston have Alzheimer's disease? Charlton Heston's career and family life were both things anyone could look back on and remember with pride. But in a cruel twist of fate, this would be difficult for this Hollywood icon. In 2002, Heston came forward with a very somber announcement. He said, quote, "My dear friends, colleagues, and fans, my physicians have recently told me I may have a neurological disorder whose symptoms are consistent with Alzheimer's disease. So I wanted to prepare a few words for you now, because when the time comes I may not be able to. I've lived my whole life on the stage and screen before you. I've found purpose and meaning in your response. For an actor, there's no greater loss than the loss of his audience. I can part the Red Sea, but I can't part with you, which is why I won't exclude you from this stage in my life." By 2006, a report said the family was told to expect him to be gone by year's end. Before all was said and told, Heston made it to 2008, before dying of pneumonia on April 5th. He was 84 years old. It got to the point where Heston was unable to recount his full story, but his children have dedicatedly taken up that task for him. And it was Fraser who summed it up best, saying, quote, "He was an author. He was proud of his pro bono work for his country and for civil rights. But I think he was most proud of his family. I know he was proud of me, something I am very grateful for." On screen, Charlton Heston was an untouchable titan. In his private life, he was once the awkward kid in Over His Head, a love-struck soldier missing his wife, a fierce advocate, a practical joker, and a dedicated father. This whirlwind legacy was lost to Heston in the end, but his family has a lot of great things to share still.
He was such a wonderfully involved father.
All right, that's enough of me. Now we really need to hear from you all. What was your favorite of all his remarkable films? Which was his best role? And did we leave any great tidbit out? get in the comments and tell us all things Charlton Heston. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you don't get left behind. But most importantly, from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you very much for watching.